in that room.
The conference? Dude.
Yeah,
wait.
director might be a few minutes.
What if he stinks? Like, do you know I can't do breath? I got bad gag reflex.
You know he's physically fit. He might be working out.
How tall is he? Because I don't want that gnome under the giant.
He's not a gnome. Yeah, he's not a gnome. He's at least a 6 deuce.
I really can't handle this if he's going to stink. You guys sit beside him. I can't sit beside him.
All right, man, we'll space it out.
How's my breath smell? Oh, smell good?
Manure?
Manure.
Sour cream?
Do you have any gum?
Not for you. Okay. Dude, I'm starving, though. We got to get this over with.
I'm hungry, too. You have some food? You got McDonald's? You got a drink? You didn't get food?
Just a drink, man. I'm just thirsty.
Jeez.
I didn't want to get bubble.
Is this the room?
Yeah.
All right. This is duty.
No.
Yeah.
So we're probably gonna have to
So
start
if we put him somewhere over here for
once
this,
we get big money,
right?
we'll move
Yeah,
on
maybe
to
give
Menard.
flags in the background.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And Menard, and
Hey,
Mike,
you cool?
thanks, man.
Yeah, dude.
yeah, we're probably
Healthy
gonna
stuff, too.
go to Menard next. And
I love grapes. I gotta get by here, sir. Maybe if we use
yeah.
something like this.
Hold on a second. Who you guys?
We're staff wellness. We're here to interview the director.
Yeah.
We're gonna need this room in like 5 minutes, man.
Can we kick you out?
Hold on for a second.
Yeah.
Shalith, who's my 130?
You have a podcast with some guys, Luke and Joe.
Is that you two?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Not me. Hey, I gotta call my wife.
I'll call you back.
What if the hospital's hiring?
That was good.
All right, hello and welcome everyone to the 3rd episode of The Fourth Shift, Mind, Body, and Badge, with your host, me, Dr. Luke, and Joe.
Sergeant Valentine, yes, sir.
All right, before we introduce our very special guest, you can see to my left here, we want to give a big shout out to a couple of people who have helped out with the podcast. So Zach Stevens has done some artwork for us. When you guys pull up those little badges, whether it's Spotify or whatever else, you'll see kind of the silhouettes. He worked on that for us, and Brooke Crosshire did that awesome intro tune, that lick that you guys heard. So shout out to you guys. Just wanted to show our appreciation. And Joe?
Yeah, before we get started, I'd like to go over a couple things for staff wellness. We're getting ready to do some more podcasts. We have a possible baseball player lined up, which is really exciting as well. I won't say what team, just know I'm wearing my Cincinnati Reds jersey, along with some events for staff wellness. So CF2F, I just want to remind everybody, you can start signing up now. That's 2 days out of the facility in street clothes, talking about our mental health, keeping it raw, keeping it real, and then finding those resources that we can use to overcome our depression, our anxiety, and our struggles. Right? So it's a 2-day course outside of your facility. Talk to your training lieutenants, talk to your facility coordinators. Sometimes it's the warden secretaries who sign you up. Find out through your facility coordinators first.
Hey, Joe, have you taken that class?
I have taken that class.
What'd you think of it?
First day was emotional. Like for me, I got home, I held my daughters, cried in my wife's arms, and it was one of those things that for me, I realized I needed to do a 180 on my mental health, and it was powerful. So I encourage you, if you got 20 years in, I don't care. If you got 2 days in, I don't care. Take the class, because either way, that 20-year vet's going to say, I wish I would have taken this sooner.
Yeah.
And that person who has 2 days in is going to say, I haven't earned enough time to take a class yet. Get out of there with that nonsense. Take the class. It's going to help you in your career as a correctional officer within the state. Because, like we've said before, physically we're ready for this job.
Yeah.
Mentally we're not. Regardless of any situation you tell me, come at me with. This class is a resource and a tool that gets you ready mentally for the job. So, CF2F. Also, we have a new program that just opened up, just went out at Vienna, right? Was it Vienna?
You gotta say Vienna or the locals are gonna kill you.
It's the speech.
I hunt down there, you say Vienna, you're gonna get pushed out of
tomato.
Vienna.
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 Right? So, what this is called All Things You. And All Things You is we've gotten the permission from him and from everyone else to shut down the facility and make it about staff. It's an hour and a half long. Staff gets relieved. Staff gets to go to this hour and a half long class. We talk about the different dimensions of wellness, environmental, emotional, spiritual, financial. We break it down for you. Again, we provide you tools to better yourself and to better understand how we can overcome this crazy world of corrections that we work in today, right? that's happening. We're getting ready to come to a couple other facilities with that. So check with your facility coordinators in regards to all things you. That's all the updates I got, though, Luke.
That's it. Okay.
Awesome.
Well, without any further ado, we'd like to welcome the guy behind us here, our fearless director of the Illinois Department of Corrections, Director Rob Jeffries.
Thank you for joining us, sir.
Well, thank you too.
And thanks for the food.
Yeah, grapes were delicious.
Yeah, that was pretty nice. So first and foremost, before we even get into this whole script for today, I want to thank you two for the work you guys are doing with getting us rebooted with this podcast. I think this is very important. Staff need to hear from us about what our intentions are and what are we doing for them to improve their work environments, to cover all the 8 dimensions, as you put it earlier. So I want to say thank you to thank you to the whole staff wellness team. We got Matt Millen and we got Jonathan, who have been working tirelessly behind the scenes to get us to this point, to this day. But it's a reboot.
It is.
And just think about the last 2 years. I mean, we've been through a lot. COVID has shown us a lot about ourselves, and in some aspect, it's made us stronger, and we're better for it, and better because of it. So I can't say enough to the staff about how appreciative I am of you and the work you've done over the last 2 years to get us to this point, to have these type of conversations, because we're still dealing with COVID. It hasn't gone nowhere, but we're dealing with it with a whole type of mindset that nothing can defeat us because we've been through COVID.
Yeah.
So let's move forward. So thank you.
So we're really excited when we heard that you said you wanted to restart the podcast and be a part of the podcast. It's really inspiring for us to hear, hey, have fun, be creative, but most of all, really make this about staff. Like, that's been the most exciting thing about starting this podcast. So we appreciate your support behind us as well, with giving us that chance to do this fun interview process.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we know the state, huge state, hard for us to get everywhere, all the way from East Moline, Dixon, Sheridan, way far up north, to Vienna, Shawnee, Menard, way down south. That's a lot of real estate to cover. So, we have a lot of local teams. We have some regional teams. We have statewide teams. We do our best to cover everything. But we thought this podcast would be another way to kind of keep people engaged with what's going on. A lot of people have commutes.
Yeah.
It's kind of a really big medium. And podcasts have been around for probably 20 years. But, boy, in the last 5 or 6 years, especially since COVID, they really taken off. So when somebody asked us to do one, and it wasn't even our idea, we said we're on it. So love it.
What's the worst that can happen in this situation?
Don't answer that.
Don't answer that question. Rob, we know you hail from the great state of Ohio, the Buckeye State. So I guess one of the first questions I have for you is, since you've been here in 2019, can you reflect on the different experiences and maybe share what you've taken away from your different experiences from Ohio to Illinois?
Well, Joseph, since you ask. The two states, they're not that different. I mean, we are, same type of population, same type of setup as far as prison, 27 and 27. We have less population than what they do. I think they had about 48,000. We're at 28,000 and some change. We have a lot of our facilities similar in different parts. I mean, Ohio is a square state. This is a rectangular state. It's long, where Ohio is wide. But the thing about these two states are the same is where the facilities are located, which brings the similarity as opposed to the difference in how we manage that. We're in a lot of outskirts of the metropolises. We're in little smaller communities where that works for us because the staff are more family oriented in these smaller communities in which they're coming from. So I think that's a good thing. In this particular situation we're dealing with right now is we shortage of staff, so it's not working to our favor, but we'll get through this just like everything else. But in those communities where those facilities are located at, the staff is our biggest recruiters because they recruit from that same town or that community or that county And so we just need to lean on them to help us get through this little short stint we're doing with staffing shortages. But I've been here all of 3 years, 3 months, and 26 days.
Who's counting?
I am.
Yeah. And Ben, just about every single one of those days was hard. I know.
Yeah.
You know, you started on a day of tragedy, and then right into COVID, and here we are.
Yeah, and so that brings up a point I want to bring up, and wow, this is so important. I remember my first day on the job. We had a tragic event. Somebody lost her life, Miss Martin. And from that day all the way up for a whole year period, it was like every other week, every other month, we were losing staff. And for that year, for that calendar year, from the day I started in 2019 to May of 2020 when we had our first memorial, which was under COVID, 22 people. We lost 22 staff members during that period of time. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And so that's why this is so important to start investing. Well, not start, but reboot investing into our staff wellness and to take care of our most valuable asset.
Yeah, so our staff wellness has probably been around about 5 years. I know they started with some teams and some other kind of prior iterations, but 5 years. So it feels like it's been a while, but that's also really an infant in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I know, like, when we take on a podcast or All About You or something new, it's really exciting to do something new, but really scary all at the same time because prison has its own culture, and we're trying to kind of organically weave ourselves into that, you know, and not be rejected by staff and really show that, you know, we're there for support.
Right.
I think it's important to acknowledge, like, what you're doing and the role that you're in, that staff's priority is key when it comes to checking on them. When it comes to, like you just said, in a short period of time, there was 22 staff members that lost their, you said that without hesitation, that number. It wasn't like you made it up. I mean, that was a number that you came off, like, you know that staff struggling mentally, emotionally. That's important to acknowledge, and sometimes we, in this field of corrections, don't want to talk about. I don't want to tell you I need help. I don't want to tell you that I want to talk about my mental health because you will look at me as weak, right? And then in that situation, it's a domino effect to the new staff around because they're going to see that guy with 20 years in saying, you're soft if you ask for help. And then me with 1 day in, I ain't going to say, hey, Rob, I need to talk to you.
Right.
You know, I'm going through some stuff. You know, it's powerful. So,
Yeah, I hear veterans tell similar stories all the time, like where, you know, you go to sick call or sick bay or whatever, you get this pink slip and you're kind of paraded in front of everybody. And it's just kind of a parade of shame. So, you know, you better be really, really injured. And boy, if your shoulder's dislocated, it's worth it. But, you know, if you need to get your head back in the right space, it's not treated the same way, right? We look at mental difficulties a little bit more different, you know, at least than we do with a lot of physical ailments, injuries, and stresses and stuff. So,
But Joseph pointed out a good point in the very beginning about training, getting more people involved in training. The more we can get involved on the front end of training, then that takes down the barrier, you know, the stigma that you are less than if you receive any type of help. Now, there's a couple of other avenues we can go about it, and we'll probably get into that a little later, but I don't want to make it an option. You know, it should be a protocol. So we got to work through that. There's some discussions about some policies and what we're trying to look at about making some things just automatically. As soon as we know something that's devastating has happened within either a staff member or the facility, it should be automatic.
yeah, we talked about that in our last podcast with William Young, trying to make that just organically happen. Like, what happens after, you know, an incident at a facility? You write an incident report. You debrief. We want that staff wellness aspect to just be the natural next step, too, and to make it normal that, well, you're going to check in, you're going to share, you're going to look out for your folks, you're going to attend some programming. That's just natural. And make our leaders really buy into that so the folks that are younger than them really see this is what a healthy person does. This is what a brave man or woman does. They go get that help. They get that. That's responsible care. You know, if you're diabetic and you didn't go get insulin, nobody would say you're brave. They'd say you're a fool.
Yeah. You know, one thing I do with my daughters at home is I know I have to be honest with my mental health with them. and me and my oldest have a code word, right? So being a part of the regional, administration team for staff wellness, there'll be some days when I get a phone call and then another phone call and another phone call. Like this is while I was homeschooling my oldest. And I'd be drinking my coffee, watching ESPN. It was just one after another. And I'm trying to build a team. I'm trying to contact my bosses. I'm trying to contact facility coordinators. And for me, sometimes I just have to stop and I'll stand in the kitchen, drink my coffee, and Anna will walk up. And she'll go, Dad, Stardust. You know what Star Wars is? Like, it's from Rogue One, like the Death Star plans. And that's our code word.
Not everybody knows that, but yes, Joe is a Star Wars freak, by the way.
So that's our code word. Like when she needs to talk, she'll say Stardust. And I'm like, what's up, kid? What's going on? And she knows that I need to talk. She'll say it or I'll say it. So I'm in the kitchen the other day going through some stuff, and she walks in, puts her book down and her piano book down, and she goes, Dad, Stardust. I go, what's up? You good? She goes, no, you've been on the phone for like 20 minutes. What's going on, Dad? So our kids, and that's what's really important to me with staff wellness, is our kids are seeing how we're handling ourselves at home. Because ain't no one going to tell me at all that you can easily turn off the prison or the facility or your office work that you do and go home and have it be nothing, have it not affect you. No one can ever tell me with a straight, and it's my opinion, but with a straight face, I genuinely believe it's going to affect your home life, and your home life will affect your work life.
No doubt. Tons of research on it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite books on trauma, The Body Keeps the Score.
Love that.
I mean, they're not necessarily talking about correctional staff in particular, but folks who experience that chronic stress, anxiety, PTSD, if it's to that point, their children have kind of telltale signs from growing up in that environment, from being anxious and trying to read parents to, being kind of having attachment issues, all that stuff. So some people may not want to get help for themselves. Maybe that's not a big enough buy-in, but for son or for daughter, that might be big enough for some folks to jump in and say, you know what, that's right, because 5, 10, 15 years down the road, this might be something that impacts her or impacts him. So we see a lot. But saying all that, Director, I know you've had, however many days you said it was, over 3 years with us, and certainly a lot of other experience in Ohio, and probably other things we don't know about. And we've heard some rumors that you've got some great ideas for potential new directions for staff wellness. So I wonder if you kind of hit us with what you're thinking, and maybe a few things we might add on to the repertoire and avenues to go down.
This is one of the most dangerous and stressful work environments. Everybody knows statistics about how we're increased PTSD, suicidal, alcoholism, divorce rate, and what have you, and unfortunate suicide rates. Because the one thing that people don't realize who's in this business is the threat. And the propensity of violence is constant. It's the whole shift.
Yeah.
At any given time, it can switch like that. As opposed to other law enforcement is you're probably patrolling the threat or you go to a threat. Our threat is constantly around us. So that's where we really have to pay attention to our environment.
Yeah, and in our research, we call that like anticipatory anxiety or stress. Yeah. So we talked about this in our last podcast with Will, that some moments are certainly very stressful, there's danger, but other moments are quite sedentary, but that anticipation of that danger happening and that going from kind of 0 to 10 so frequently is really taxing on the body.
Yeah. So with that, let me start with some of the things we want to hope to achieve this year, before this year ends. And when we talk about the dimension, we talk about that environmental dimension. We will make it available for staff to have wellness rooms. We need some type of debriefing.
And we've seen that. So some of the facilities that I go to have already had those. Other places are literally in the works of building them. So it's happening. It's really exciting.
Yeah, and we need to be very intentional about it. We need to let staff know that this is for you. This is when you have one of those days or an event just happened. This is where you go. It's not an option. You don't get to choose if we short staff that day or what have you. You get to go to this room and debrief. Have a moment. Relax. Gather yourself and what have you. So we're going to be very intentional about anything we roll out because I just charged the deputy directors to meet with staff wellness committees at each region to talk about brainstorming about how can we change and improve that environment for our So that's one of the biggest keys about what can we do at that facility level. As far as recruiting, we know right now an added stressor is overtime, mandations, short staff. So we are increasing our efforts as it relates to recruitment. I met with Brittany. She's awesome and phenomenal, but she's only one person. So we're increasing that role to make it more of a regional thing. So we're going to have one in each region to help the recruiting efforts to get our staff more recruitment and what have you. But I truly believe, I presented on this at ACA. I partnered up with Oregon and Texas. We talked about some of the shortcomings that relate to recruitment, because it's just not us. Think about Texas. They have the same struggles we have, but it's more impactful because of the sheer size of Texas. So the turnover is more. As we were presenting, I talked about one of the things we can do to address our retention is increase our staff wellness. Make sure that those folks who are working, who are still here, who have not left us, making sure we're being very intentional and making sure we're taking care of them. And so over the last couple of years, it kind of wasn't on the forefront as it has been, but now it's time to reboot and make sure that they know that they are our most valuable asset, because we can't do nothing about the workforce. Nothing. All the moves and all the policies, all the programming, all the response to COVID, everything we've done, we couldn't do it without the staff.
Yeah, humans are our biggest, capital in this. I mean, we could get all kinds of new buildings and technology, but without humans.
Some of the other things I think, talking with Jonathan, it was increasing our training. That's tough too. When we get short staff, to be able to get staff away to do some training, meaningful training. But I think that's important. So we got to make some deliberate efforts to make sure we get that off the ground. Not off the ground, but more. It's already in place, but we just need to increase that amount of people. One of the things I don't think everybody knows is we started this venture 2021 with this national consortium. Am I saying that word right?
I think so.
How would you say the word?
I ain't even going to attempt.
Joe, you have a speech impediment. Let's hear you say it. I want to hear you say it.
I can't even say February correctly. I ain't even going to do that.
Well, the good thing is September.
I can say September.
Consortium.
That's right. I got to sound it out.
I think.
But what this is this is groundbreaking. It's the frontline staff nationally having a monthly call to talk about what's working in their state. And what we hear when you listen to these calls, you hear, well, we're doing that. And then you hear some folks, you're not doing that. So there's a lot of stuff that we think we're doing for staff, but when you hear from the frontline staff, it's not really meeting them. The rubber meets the road. So this was our baby. We started this conversation, and it's something that we hold dear, and it's about getting that conversation going nationally. And people call in every month, and I sit on the call and just listen to it and see what's going on and see what people are doing and say, well, can we do this? Can we try that? And what have you. So I think that's something that is good for the frontline staff to hear. If we can make that available to everybody, it'd be something that'd be great. But we're doing a lot of good things. We got a lot more things to come down the pipe. Some of this is not in our control, but we're working with some other state agencies to try to change some policies in the way we do things. And I danced around that right there.
I'll tell you my dream. So when I retire, or after this podcast, when we don't edit it correctly and we're done, Joe,
Could be today.
I'd love to start a non-for-profit for not just correctional officers, but for firefighters, cops, correctional officers, vets, kind of all first responders, to have some more local resources, in this area, and to be able to provide those direct services. Because it's just, I know all of us that are on staff wellness, it's a labor of love, but we always find out there's some other need, and we will give everything, as much as we can, but we're just one person.
Yeah.
So.
Our military family, we have 339 active military people that work for us. So I think we need to do something to help them with.
That's essentially like one whole facility of security staff.
Right. So when they're deployed, how are we helping their family members when they return? How are we onboarding them back into the workforce? What's that transition look like? Make sure there's seamless efforts and what have you. When I was in Ohio, we had a whole military peer support group that just dealt with the military. It was part of the military family, and they all worked together to bring about these resources to make sure, coin the phrase, no one's left behind, especially when family members are deployed. One of the things I think would be very, very, very beneficial here is in Ohio, we established a parking lot, parking space at each facility for anybody visiting that facility for Purple Heart. It was a purple, it just showed that constant support. If you're visiting to that facility and you received that award and everything, this is a spot for you right up front.
Wow,
nice.
So that type of intentional is some of the things that we need to start looking at about how can we take care of our military families. 339.
Well, that's active, you said. So how many do we know that have finished their Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine duty, and then now work for us full time? We got a lot of vets.
Yes.
So some of my work that I do on the side, I work with veterans, doing like evals for disability and stuff. So I get to see veterans a lot. So it's another passion of mine. And the population, it's no wonder we get a lot of folks from the military to come work for us. They're similar populations, similar mindset, a lot of pride in what we do. So I think a program like that would be great.
Great.
We had an intern years ago at Logan in social work who finished her active duty in the military, then went back and got her MSW and intern. So we've got people that have been in our system that would, be good advocates and places to start. So we'll have to kind of talk after this and get some stuff online.
Great. Right now, I was at one of the graduations, and the cool thing that I noticed that you did was you had the families and you had the wardens stay and had the families come to the wardens from the different facilities their kids or spouses was going to work at and meet them and ask them questions. And then I saw how you had the deputy directors there as well, interacting with them as well. Like, I remember when I first went through the academy class, like, you all were on that pedestal that you all just sitting there watching us, giving us a round of applause when we go to our facilities. But that, to me, when I saw that up in the crowd, I thought that was powerful. Now my question to you in reference to that is, what advice or what would you say to those cadets right now, starting off in corrections?
Okay. Well, thank you, Joseph, for bringing that up. I can remember that. That was a real live, brain thought right there.
You just did that randomly.
It just came to me.
Ad-libbing.
Yeah. It was all about, we were discussing about recruitment and what have you, and the family environment, and how we recruit is by our employees doing our best recruiting for us. And so there we are in a graduation, and we got their family members there and all their loved ones. Well, what a great opportunity to get them involved in what we do as far as corrections and this corrections family. So that's when I, came to me, let's get them involved. Let's get them more engaged. One of the things that will springboard off of that graduation is we're going to get back to family days back at the facility. So it's got to have that energy, that synergy that invites people to want to work there. Family members need to know where their loved one is working at. Our loved ones need to be proud of where they're working at and everything. So we just need to, capitalize on those opportunities. Which brings me to a good springboard to talk about our new training academy. Awesome.
Yeah.
We're waiting for our podcasting,
where our office is
going to be. Yeah. Studio.
Yeah. Right in the new auditorium.
I thought you were going to tell us that grain bin that was out there.
So this is awesome. I mean, in the first 40 years, I think it's been since we've been here at this Concordia And now we get a brand new facility. I just talked to Steve Ryan today, and I was trying to get some updates on how's it going. You know, it being brand new. Our first class started September 21st. So we're a couple weeks into it, and they're graduating on October 21st. But he's excited. I mean, a couple things about our training. And this started with Pat Connolly and his team, and then it transitioned into Steve Ryan and his team, the continuation of what we're trying to do to increase our training for our staff. I mean, it's all about making that investment into them because, like I said, we can't do nothing without them having the right tools and resources to move us forward. So we've increased our standards in training. We incorporate all Illinois law enforcement and Let's Be training standards into our training curriculum. We rolled out from 6 weeks to 8 weeks now. This new academy has virtual simulations, and he told me about that today. I mean, it's it gets into the practical skills of this is a real life scenario and how do you react to this. I mean, they have opportunity to dial it up,
nice,
or take it down based on your interactions with the simulation. They can take it from.
So they're learning like de-escalation,
real live
techniques.
Yeah, real live simulations
where it's safe, but still kind of at high stakes.
Right.
And that's one thing that I've always felt like we needed at the academy as well. Is that we can talk about going through the motions and going through all that, but like that real life. Yeah, that's good.
The research, I'll go back to the research, shows that like train hard and train in more realistic environments, you have better outcomes, right? Like nobody that was ever good at anything did walkthroughs, right? So I think that's going to be valuable. I've only seen one of the rooms out there. We had a mental health meeting. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Now I've seen the other stuff on the Facebook page of some of the cadets. Looks amazing. So I'm excited to get out there and kind of take a look soon.
Now I drop a little Easter egg on here is the cadets are in new cadet uniforms too for the first time. What do you think's coming next? Leave it at that.
Okay.
And then the technology there, we got Wi-Fi.
Really?
The cadets have laptops. They're able to walk around with laptops and what have you.
Nice.
Yeah.
So 21st century, here we are.
And I know we got some really good and passionate trainers out there.
Absolutely.
Having worked with Steven and Myron and a few of the other guys over the years. We got a very enthusiastic, bunch of trainers who, live and breathe this. And they're into staff wellness too. So we got the right people out there getting their hands on our folks, in their early days, setting things right. I want to kick it back to something you said earlier, Director, about the family days and just thinking about research and how important that is. A lot of people know second generation corrections, and I don't remember ever doing anything like that. Dad's job was Dad's job. We stayed away. And, the research and just living in first person, I know how isolative that is, right? You come home, you deal with the stresses. There's this emphasis, I don't want to drop this on my family. I want to protect them from that environment, right? And then so those walls get built between husband, wife, partner, friends, family, whomever. And then having that connection to the family kind of teaches them, no, this is good. You want to be talking about this stuff. Your family needs to know what's going on so they can support you and you can support them. They're anxious you're there too. So I just think that's a wonderful idea, and I'm just excited to see, the evolution of that go a little further. But that's my sidebar.
In the book, When the Home Becomes a Housing Unit, right, William talks about the fact of not going to family events, not going to work events. If it's the union putting on a cookout or if it's just a cookout by the facility at all, right? That plan of going, and then that last minute, like, yeah, I'm going to go. And then that dreading when it gets to 30, 20 minutes before it's time to go. Like, I got to think of when I'm going to get out of here next, right? And when you show up.
You know what that's called, Joe?
What, Lucas?
Negative reinforcement.
Okay.
So don't think a negative is good and bad, but taken away. So anxiety builds. You take that away, so the anxiety goes down. But what happens next time? Anxiety starts here instead of here.
Exactly.
And that's with PTSD. We see it with vets. We see it with our folks.
Yeah.
Stopping engaging in those things you used to like because it build up anxiety, so you pull away, and it just gets harder. It snowballs.
Yeah, and so lately, like I've been forcing myself to go to events when I don't want to. Like, I'll tell my wife, I'm ready to go, we're going to go do this, but then, like, right before it starts.
Yeah, I had to go to Disney on Ice this weekend.
Yeah, how was that?
It's a mix between having panic attacks from all the lights, noises, and sounds and falling asleep from the boredom.
Yeah.
Disney's not my cup of tea.
But what Young talks about is the importance of realizing that going to those events, that's the people we work with. That's the person that's going to come running if a code happens, if something pops off. And knowing those people and spending time with those people and having your family meet those people, you know, that trust, that intimate trust that comes from that is important. And sometimes we don't want to look at it like that. Sometimes we just will look at it as, I can't stand Luke. I'll work with Luke, but I don't want to go see him at a family function.
Yeah, if we're not doing the podcast, we
don't
don't really talk.
But it's putting that aside, and the importance of what you're talking about as well is breaking that barrier that we in corrections have towards spending that
so
time.
So literally starting at day one, normalizing this. Your family's a part of this.
Yeah.
I mean, they may not be getting the paycheck in their name, but they're part of this. They're living this experience to some degree.
Positively and negatively.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So
I mean, normalizing is a key word because you're going to have that understanding. There's going to be plenty of times. I tell every new graduate that there's going to be plenty of times where you're not going to be able to make it to an event. Your staff, your family needs to understand why. They need to know what the demands of this job, and they're going to have to know what goes on day to day. So when you're called to work over, or if you're called, or if you have mandated, or because somebody has, we're short staffed for this particular day, or we're dealing with COVID, they have to understand what that responsibility is for you, and they have to be understanding. I think they need to be involved more. Let me just leave it at that.
No, it makes good sense. And hopefully staff wellness can find a way to kind of help our folks have those difficult conversations with their loved ones and partners so they can have those open lines of communication so they feel like they're being supported in this tough work that they do.
But on the flip side of that, we need to have balance as well, too. We need to take time for ourselves when that time is available for us. We need to spend time with our family so we are investing in our, we're building up that good wealth with our family. So that's important, too, to make sure that when those times are available, take them and make them meaningful.
Yeah, so we're about ready to wrap up here, Director. We want to thank you for your time today. I know we borrowed a lot of your time and some of your grapes this morning, but we're wondering if you would leave one last little nugget or grape of wisdom with us. So whether it's been in Illinois, Ohio, or wherever else, you probably had a lot of teachers, mentors, leaders. Piece of advice, something somebody said that sticks with you the most today, what would that be?
Thank you, Luke. One of the things, I said it earlier, one of the things always strikes me as something we have to be very intentional about, and that's balance. Because this job, this environment, this field requires a lot of us, way beyond the 8 hours a day. It's everything we do because it's our lifestyle. And so we have to be very intentional about bringing about balance to that lifestyle. Because this is a very negative field, a negative environment. So we have to be very deliberate in bringing positivity to it. So with that, also balance, make sure we take care of our health, covering all the 8 dimensions. We're going to take care of our environmental dimension, but a lot of that has to do with self-development. Invest in oneself. What you put in is what you get out. So if you're reading good stuff, you're going to put out good stuff. If you're eating good stuff, such as my grapes, you're going to put out good stuff. So,
all right, no more McDonald's for us. We get the point. We get the point.
Sorry you saw me with the McDonald's bag earlier.
Okay? But this goes back to what we were talking with Will, last week too. That wellness is not something somebody does to you. Right, it's a part of your life that you've got to take some ownership on and step up and be a leader in and of yourself and do some of these things.
Absolutely,
kind of the right way. So it's exciting to hear that we've got a lot of things that are going to help people do that more easily. Try to make this environment better for people the best we can. And like we say on our podcast, one of the rules we had when we were planning this podcast is we wanted to counter that toxicity that we see at work. We hear enough of that. It's there. We don't need to add to that, but we want to be positive voices, folks that can overcome that we want this podcast and Staff Wellness to be a place to kind of shout louder with positivity than the toxicity. So that's
Absolutely.
We're going to kick the final thoughts to you.
That was my final thoughts.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for having us, sir.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you.
See you next time. All right. Welcome, everyone, to Between Two Beards with your host, Luke, that's me, and Joe.
What's up, guys?
Today, we're interviewing Rob Jeffries, the Illinois Department of Corrections Director. Are you ready? Good. First question.
How long does it take for you to get ready in the morning? And what type of conditioner and shampoo do you use?
Does Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson know that he has a twin brother?
McDonald's or Burger King?
How good is your sock can? Do they make those in men's sizes? Next question. Which animal wins in a fight? Joe Rogan or a polar bear?
How long do you look at yourself in the mirror? And how many times do you go? Do you smell what the Rock is cooking?
Who's your favorite superhero?
Batman.
I thought you were going to say Robin, and this interview is going to be over. Right answer.
You look like a Flash. Ant-Man.
Why Batman?
Utility bill.
Utility bill.
Yeah.
I just think, how cool is it for somebody to be a superhero without any superpowers? Just a billionaire with an IQ and killer good looks.
And a utility bill.
And a utility bill.
Do you have a Batman voice?
Which Batman? Christian Bale.
Christian Bale. Can you say where are the drugs?
Rob Jeffries, Batman.
Oh, do you think darkness is your ally?
He gave us Bane?
He gave us Bane.
You were merely born in the darkness. I lived in it.
Where are the drugs?
Still rolling? We got to get new editors for this show. Our budget is terrible. Favorite movie quote? Nobody puts baby in the corner. Wrong answer. Best TV show ever?
The Jerk.
How often do you shine your forehead?
If you could have one superpower, assuming you don't have any already, what would it be?
To be invisible.
Who smells better? Me or Luke? Be honest.
Luke.
Right answer. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Dumb questions.
Favorite type of music?
Walking in and out of this building, or whenever you walk in somewhere, why is it Taylor Swift Shake It Off? What house of Hogwarts are you in? You look like a Slytherin guy.
I'm calling Hufflepuff. Favorite sport?
Volleyball.
This question is for both of you. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? I'll go ahead and answer for you. You're still going to be 5'2". Your turn.
Not 5'2".
Okay. What's your favorite part of this interview?
It being over.